president authorized fire long-range American weapons into Russia, focused on the region of Kursk, which Ukraine seized and Moscow is trying to recapture. Our Nick Schifrin sat down with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan for an exclusive interview this morning to discuss that authorization for Ukraine, as well as the Middle East and President Biden's legacy on the world stage.
Jake Sullivan, thanks very much. Welcome to NewsHour.
Thanks for having me.
2 U.S. officials confirmed to me that the administration has given Ukraine authorization to use ATACMS, the longest range U.S. weapon the Ukraine has in its arsenal. Why have you made that decision?
Well, we don't have anything to announce or confirm on that today, so those remain unconfirmed reports. One thing I would point out, though, for context, is that Russia has just engaged in a massive escalation in this war. They have brought in a foreign army, North Korean troops, to the front lines of the battle, and that represents a sea change in the nature of this conflict.
The Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, today has responded saying that, yes, there is no official confirmation, and if there were, it would mean that there was direct involvement of the United States in the war.
If the U.S. were to authorize the use of any weapon system, including this weapon system, it wouldn't mean direct U.S. participation in the war. It would mean a continuation of the policy we've had since the war began, which is that we supply the means to Ukraine to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity, and they fight the war.
In and around Kursk, there are tens of thousands of troops being massed to try and retake this territory that Ukraine seized earlier this year inside Russia. There are Russian command and control sites, there are air defense, rocket launchers. Are those good ATACMS targets?
Look, I will obviously defer to the Ukrainians about how they choose to prosecute the war. From our perspective right now, the major escalation that we've seen is not about a particular geography or about a particular part of the front. It's about the fact that Russia has gone to another country from another part of the world. North Korea brought in thousands of their troops to the front lines and have added them to this war. That is a change, a significant change, a change that, in fact, we warned the Russians about before they did it and said if they did it, we would respond. And, of course, we will respond.
In the past, you tried to avoid provoking the Russians from escalating at times. You didn't provide tanks, and then you did decide to make that decision to provide tanks. You didn't provide F-16s, then you did provide those F-16s. Do you believe at this point, looking back, if you had provided any of those authorizations earlier, it would have made a difference to Ukraine in the war?
Have we seen a marked difference since we have provided tanks to Ukraine in terms of the battlefield? Similarly on F-16s, have we seen a marked difference? Our view has been that there's not one weapon system that makes a difference in this battle. It's about manpower, and Ukraine needs to do more, in our view, to firm up its lines in terms of the number of forces it has on the front lines. It's about munitions, and it's about all of the other things that go to a country's national strength, their morale, their cohesion, their industrial base.
But I ask because Ukraine is losing more territory today than at any point this year. So do you really believe that nothing the U.S. could have done earlier would have changed that?
We've provided the tanks, we provided the F-16s, we provided the HIMARS, we provided the Patriots, we provided many of the things that you said earlier we wouldn't provide. And it's not back then, it's rather today that Ukraine finds itself in a more challenged position on the battlefield, suggesting that there's not a straight line between those weapon systems and how it does on the battlefield. Where is the straightest line between Ukrainian performance and inputs? It's on mobilization and manpower.